Thank you so much, Dr. Shefali, for joining us. I am absolutely delighted to have you here because I watched you many years ago when your first book was out and I was blown away by it. And there were so many questions I had for you then. Yesterday, I started to read Radical Awakening and I didn't want to put it down. It was so I really felt you were taking us on that journey. I really felt that you wanted women to thrive and rise and to find their authentic self. It was so compelling. The poem. Oh, did you write that poem?
Sure, yes.
Ordinary. And all I could think is lucky Maya to have you as a mummy because
Oh,
what a, what a, well, she chose you, I guess, didn't she? She chose you as much as you chose her. So
yeah, I think I'm just very passionate because I'm a clinical psychologist and a woman who's, come from a very patriarchal background, having grown up in India, but also seeing women here in the West. I'm just so passionate about how we create our own misery as women. And I can see our traps. I can see how we undermine ourselves, even if there's nobody on the outside doing it to ourselves, because we've now internalized the oppression. And it just, because I love women so much, I'm a woman's woman. And not because I'm against men, but I just see so much power in us that it frustrates me when I see us playing small or not knowing who we are. And I'm here on a mission to help women discover themselves. I've done it for myself, I do it for my clients, and that's what this book, A Radical Awakening, is about. It's to really help our daughters and our mothers reclaim their inner knowing in a very beautiful, interconnected way.
but in writing that, you had to be very vulnerable because you shared something really for someone in your position. That's a very yeah, it's a very open thing to do because you shared that you also had your deep moment of hitting rock bottom. And you still shared it because you knew it was something that needed to be said. And I really admire that because we hold a lot back because we don't want to, this picture, this vision that people have of us, we don't want to break that because it may not suit us. But you said it all. So, what made you so candid with it and so open with it? And was there fear for you in that?
Great question. So I've been on such an intense inner journey for so long that I'm very well aware that there is no such thing as shame. And the only part of me that feels shame is the false part of me. So if I feel shame, which I do, or I feel fear, which I do, it's my false part of me. So I know now to recognize that the moment I wonder what people will think about me, that is my false self thinking that. It's not my true self. My true self doesn't give a shit because my true self is always complete. So of course I feel those normal human feelings, but I know now because of my spiritual path that that's my false, small, insecure self. So I allow those voices to come forward, I listen to them, and then I can just walk by them because I have developed another part of me, which is my true self. And my true self is only concerned about being true, being authentic. So when I reveal an honest part of myself, I'm not doing anything brave. I'm just being authentic. But you're right. Being authentic right now in today's culture is to be brave because most people are not authentic. So this book is leading the way in a way to show people that I have no compunction being authentic, and I'm encouraging other women to be the same. And hopefully my revealing my vulnerabilities will show women there is no shade, there is no shame in showing up as who you are. I mean, I don't even see myself as being courageous anymore because for me, it's having no option. There's no option anymore. I'm not here to live a life that pleases anyone or that panders to an image. I've passed all that, in my own path.
But was when you were writing the book, were there moments when you thought, actually, maybe I'll keep that bit out, or
Oh, 100%, 100%. I absolutely did, but not out of a fear of my self-image so much, but, respecting the privacy of the people involved. Um, but going through difficult times is a scary process. And the number one thing that comes up for all of us, especially women, is what will people say, right? So when I went through my divorce, I was paranoid about that till I worked through that. And that's what this book is an ode and an homage to, is the working through process. And I help other women work through those fears too. But I 100% had fears and paranoia, phobia, how will I reveal this to the world? And I had to go through a 2 year deep process to come to the other side, right? So I wasn't oblivious to those fears. And I'm human, and I went through those very egoic, insecure fears and came to the other side where now I don't have them anymore. So that's what I want to help other women go through. That's what this book is about. It's a real, raw process that all of us need to go through to arrive at our authentic selves. So I use my experience as a woman who's gone through those fears, my expertise as a clinical psychologist, and I hold women's hands to go through this process. I can almost assure women that if they read this book cover to cover, they will come out at the other end with a very renewed perspective on their authentic self.
wow. So what is to you the authentic self?
It is the self that finally feels complete, that finally feels untethered from the opinions of others, and no longer relies on the external world to the great degree that it used to for love and worth. It is a self that replenishes itself.
Wow. And everyone can do that.
Oh, it's living within any and every human being. It's just been buried under the layers of cultural bullshit. And when you unfold and unlayer the cultural bullshit, you arrive at your authentic self. And in this book, I talk about the lies that culture tells us that have buried us underground. And if you undo those lies, you will begin to touch upon your authentic self. It is your birthright, it is within you. It's just a process to get back to it.
Oh, I can't wait to get back to it. What makes us lose it in childhood?
Our own parents' fear and their own sheep like mentality to fit in. It's not their fault per se, but it's inevitable. We are a very unconscious dimension. I mean, you praise me as a mother, but I too have given Maya loads of my own crap that she will have to undo. It's part of this human dimension, I think, to undo the legacies that our parents give us. So for the most part, we are all raised by unconscious parents who are trapped in fear, who want to fit in, who are steeped in their own unworthiness. So because they were raised with a prescription list, they give us the prescription list. So 1 second, I have to sneeze. Sorry, I have allergies. uh, so when that prescription list is given to you as if it's your destiny, that is really alarming. And our authentic self wants to fight against it, but because we're so young and naive, we just accept it. And that's when the false self begins to develop, because we're not given a chance to discover our true self. We're told, especially as girls, that we have to be skinny or polite or kind or good, perfect, and we're not allowed to discover our own foibles or path or mistakes. So that's where the false self develops early in childhood, when we follow the prescription list that our parents give to us as if it's supposed to be our destiny.
Mm. It's a hard one to live with, that one, isn't it? And so
Yes.
many do. I was surprised to hear that you did. I always thought of Mumbai as very kind of even more kind of liberal than London, even more kind of with parents that would just, and the fact that you came to the US, I just imagined you had this very liberal upbringing.
Yeah, I did have a liberal upbringing, but you can't escape culture.
Mm,
And when I came to America, I fantasized that the Western woman had a liberal upbringing, So I too had fantasies like you projected onto me. I projected it onto the Western woman. And then when I came to America and I saw that it doesn't matter what the external trappings of the culture are, the internalized oppression that women face are ubiquitous across the globe, of course, to greater degrees and lesser degrees. But the loss of knowing, inner knowing, is ubiquitous. The loss of inner worthiness is ubiquitous. And it's so tragic to me that women across the globe are divorced from their authentic self, and men too, but women even more.
I noticed you said actually in the opener to your book, this is not really, you speak of women because you are one, but it's not just for women, it's for anyone who wants to awaken, anyone
Yes,
who's ready to awaken. And I
yes,
think that was lovely that you say that because it's more about the kind of the the modeling that we take on as opposed to being a woman. So anyone who's taken on that modeling, it's for them.
yes, exactly. And every human being has taken it on. So while this book speaks to the particular nuanced experiences of a girl or a woman, it is really a ubiquitous phenomenon.
And you have a process through this book, right? There's a process.
Well, the process is really understanding that there are many layers. So there's a psychological childhood conditioning, and I talk about that and the different phases of our ego. So I talk about how women are raised to either be caretakers or they're raised to be controllers or and the ego takes on different disguises. So I typecast that generally in a generalized way so people can identify, hey, that's me. That's my egoic pattern from childhood. Then there's a cultural layer around all the lies that we're told around beauty and youth and love and marriage and divorce and being nice. And we have to break through those cultural lies. And then there's a biological piece,
Mm.
which we are disconnected from. So as women, we are not connected to our sexuality. And this book also talks about how to reclaim that. So there's the biological layer, there's the psychological layer, there's the cultural layer. And then I get to how do we spiritually break through this? And I talk about Buddhist principles and how to embrace your worthiness again. So this book is divided into all these layers. And so that's the process. You can't just do one piece and not do the rest of it if you want to radically awaken.
And you do it in a step by step way, right?
Yeah, and it's not linear. You can open the book at any page and go back to some pages. And I mean, as for the sake of a book and sending page numbers, I had to put them in a linear way. But life is not linear. Our journeys are not linear. It's a hodgepodge. It's circular. It's spiraling always in a labyrinth. So we need to understand that. I always say there's no pinnacle experience. There's no such perfect destination. Oh, now I'm conscious. It doesn't exist. There's no perfect human. There's no perfect marriage. There's no perfect child. There's no perfect parent. And it's all an evolution.
Yeah.
Our journeys are really like ever unfolding flowers. And that's why I put the symbol of the lotus on the cover of the book, because it's about a many petaled journey. And so it's not linear. And in order for us to blossom into our highest potential, our awakening, all these petals need to open, and some open for some people on the psychological level first, for others, it can open on the cultural level. So our breakthroughs can occur at any point in time, in any way. Sometimes it takes a terminal illness for somebody to wake up. Sometimes it takes their kid being in trouble to wake up. So it's a multi-pronged approach. For the sake of the book, there's a journey that I outline, but I'm very aware that this journey can start and end for people at different points.
Gosh, I honestly cannot wait to read the whole thing. So you talk about something called triple threat. What is triple threat?
Well, I talk about how, because we women, especially, but boys too, are raised to look for love and worth on the outside from our parents. Mommy, daddy, do you love me? Do you see me? We'll do anything for that love when we're young. We don't realize it, but we are constantly shape shifting in order to accommodate to that, to get that love and worth. So part of that seeking makes us seek for approval, validation, and praise. And those are the three things that I call the triple threat. Because when you're raised to seek approval, all of us are seeking approval from the outside. When we're raised to seek validation, all of us are seeking validation from the outside. Praise, all of us are seeking praise from the outside. But when we grow up believing that it can only come from the outside, it becomes toxic because we become paralyzed if we don't get it from the outside. And that's why in today's social media culture, so many children, teenagers are falling prey to anxiety disorders and suicide, self-harm more than ever before, because now it's not just grandma who's approving and giving you praise or validation, it's millions of strangers. So we need to break the cycle. It's really dysfunctional. And why does it occur? Is because the parent trains the child, particularly the girl, that I have the authority to approve of you, I have the authority to validate you, and I have the authority to praise you. As grown-ups now, we need to take that power back from the people who have that power in our lives. And we need to say, no, you don't approve of me anymore. I get to approve of myself. So I always teach my daughter, and I think, it's worked to some degree, that don't ask me. I always tell her, here's my opinion, but don't follow me. And of course, I didn't do it when she was very young because she needed my help. But I always told her this is just one way of doing it. And we need to discover the best way for Maya. I always left that room for her to explore herself. And as she grows older, I always tell her it's your destiny, it's your life, it's your success, it's your failure. It has nothing to do with me. And the more we in unextricate, when we untether ourselves from the other, we allow them the power to approve, validate, and praise themselves. But parents don't do that. We guilt trip our children and we shame trip our children as if what they do matters to us. And that's why our children feel encaged by our approval, validation, and praise.
Wow. And what is the pill that kills?
I talk about the pill that kills in this book, A Radical Awakening, a lot, because at the bottom of it all, and it happens to you, to me, none of us are immune from this, is the shame of our unworthiness. The reason we enter codependent relationships, the reason we enter abusive, dysfunctional jobs, careers, friendships, is because somewhere we don't believe we're worthy for better. And so we suck it up. And in doing that, we create more suffering in our lives. At some point in our lives, I believe all of us need to go on a path, which is what this book is about. We need to go on a journey to reclaim our worth. And most of us, especially women, don't do it until we've had the children, gotten married, failed at the marriage, or succeeded, whatever. And those words are all judgments. Till we come to a place where we realize, oh my goodness, I don't know who I am. I don't know how to be. I don't even love myself. And hopefully that tragic spot is really the wake up call to go on this journey to reclaim our worth. And that's what this book offers, the permission that we need to stop our patterns and start loving ourselves. I mean, that's really cliched. Oh, we need to love ourselves. But really, that is the curse,
Mm, mm. I like,
that we don't love ourselves.
yeah, you're right. And I like that you're not saying think positive. You're
Yeah.
not saying think positive and everything will be okay. You're saying, no, you've got to get deep. You've got to go down deep into why you felt this way. You've got to forgive yourself, and then you've got to be the big person that you are, the massive light that you are. And I love that. And particularly because you're saying it, someone who people would view as very successful and having it together. And you said, well, no, I didn't have it together. We
Yeah, I don't even know what that means.
Yes, you're right.
uh, and the only together that I want to even arrive at is my inner emotional state. I don't want, just because I'm successful in the external world really has no bearing on anyone's internal world. And this book is an homage to our internal worlds. That's my focus. Am I integrated? Am I living authentic? Am I really, faking it, or am I living my truest self? And that's really my only thermometer of success, is how much is each one of us living true to the inner world and not chasing money, not chasing image, not chasing success on the external. My external success really, doesn't really occupy me. My internal liberation occupies me.
Mm. But you like your external world? Are you happy with where you are?
Yes, it's I'm only happy with my external world because I see it as a representation of my internal world. That's why, I don't see myself as working. I see myself as expressing. I don't see myself as a workaholic necessarily or career driven. I see myself as manifesting my purpose, just like I'm sure you do. We found something that gave us great joy. The thing that gives me the greatest joy is to be in service. Now, I know I sound like a martyr when I say that, but
Yeah.
I get real egoic pleasure. It's my ego's desire to help people. So I know that that's my agenda, but I found something that gives me great pleasure. So I'm not doing it because it doesn't give me pleasure. It gives me great pleasure. So I think that's our goal in life ultimately, is can we do things that give us internal joy? And when you align with that, then you never work a day in your life, right? And you feel successful. So I'm very successful, not because I make money or I'm on the New York Times. I'm very, very successful because my external world pretty much is always aligned with my internal world. I pretty much am synced up. And that to me is success, is, are you synced up?
Definitely. And so part of that has been setting very clear boundaries for yourself. And you help women with that too in this book, in Radical Awakening, is how
Yes,
to.
I was terrible at setting boundaries because I was the ultimate people pleaser, and that's really what I talk about in terms of my vulnerabilities. I was terrible. I'm still terrible at setting boundaries, and it's something I have to constantly develop in myself. I had an overused and over abused feminine side. I talk about toxic femininity. I was toxically feminine, I took my feminine aspects and went to the extreme, where I didn't just adapt and I just wasn't flexible. I literally lost myself. And I've had to learn in my journey to be more masculine. And for other people, maybe their journey is to introduce more feminine aspects. So each one of us is different. And I talk about both sides. So, you know, not pleasing someone is like against my culture, my internal culture. So I've had to really learn to discern how to take care of myself. And yes, let other people be unhappy. This was against how I was raised. I was raised to make people happy. So part of it was my nature, part of it was my conditioning. So I talk about that journey and I help other women who may go through the same thing to also untether. But yes, creating boundaries is the most profound thing. But we can't create boundaries just for the sake of closing off to the world. We have to create boundaries so that they help us be more in this world. Sometimes people misunderstand boundaries and they're actually just avoiding intimacy. Boundaries is about how can I create safety for myself so I can show up more loving, right? I was having no boundaries, thinking that was love, but actually I wasn't even there. So now I'm using boundaries to make me safe so I can show up more. But yes, that means saying no more, walking away from people, ignoring people, not answering every single email people send me. So, yes, people have been upset with me, and that's part of the process. And we have to get comfortable with that.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So now people, you have written about children, about parenting a lot, and indirectly, this is also about parenting because when we're cool, everybody's cool, right?
Absolutely.
The same thing. But if a child is already, and I'm asking for a friend, I was already a young adult, and in my personal situation, I didn't have an opportunity to bring a child up in the way I would have liked to. Circumstances did not allow because a lot was going on then. You know, when my son was young, my daughter had a brain tumor. It was all about her, and so I don't think he got the love and attention and the I don't think he got the mother he deserved at that time, but those patterns have been formed. He's a great boy. I mean, no complaints. I think he's just the best. But there are patterns that have been formed through my lack of awareness at the time. Now, the things that irritate me about my son are the triggers I have in me. So he's lazy. He didn't pick up his dish. He left it, you know, he didn't put it in the dishwasher. He left it by the sink and it's annoyed me. But it's me, it's projection. But at this age that he is now and the stage we are now, it's still about fixing me, right? It's still about me doing the work on me. And then I'll,
Well, when they become adults, is your son a young adult?
yes, he's a young adult. Yes.
So now it's also about how do we not enable them, right? So if he doesn't pick up the dish at 21, it's very different than if he didn't pick up the dish at 13, right? So at 21, we don't want to enable them. So we have several choices. One is we don't care and it doesn't bother us because we see other parts of them that are so mature and okay. If it is part of a cluster of um, a lack of ability to govern or lack of ability to regulate their environment, then I would see, are we enabling them? So my daughter, is going to college. She's 18.
You
She
think,
doesn't put her. She's 18. Yes.
wow.
Yeah. So she doesn't put her dishes away. However, I'm okay with it because she does other things
Yes.
for her life and is keeping up with her adolescence. However, if she came back to me at 22 and was still being like the way she is today, I would definitely ask myself, am I enabling her? And how can I not enable a young adult? So if it really bothers me, can she pay the rent in another apartment? Can she, what can she do to compensate for the annoyance? I wouldn't just be okay being annoyed anymore. It's different when you're dealing with an adult. And I
Mm.
think as our children grow up, we need to give ourselves the permission to treat them as adults. And of course, not go crazy and throw ourselves into a hissy fit because they left the dishes outside, but to really evaluate, am I being codependent? Am I being enmeshed because I want my kid to love me? Right? What we need to always ask that question, because sometimes, at least in my life, I did not create boundaries where I needed to because I wanted love and I wanted the other person to be happy with me. And that was really a toxic part of me, a very needy part of me that I needed to let go of and realize I cannot buy people's love at the price of my authenticity. So I better, shape up and give myself the love and worth so I can be authentic. So that was my big lesson in life.
And somebody asked us, actually a writer herself, she has younger children, and her question was, how are we honest and real with children, but in doing so, we don't take away the magic of childhood?
We're always trying to match the developmental level of the child. So, although we know that there's no tooth fairy, but say your kid learned about this darn tooth fairy at school, we allow them to stay in the magic of things because that's their developmental stage.
Right.
And we allow them. So, suppose they talk about the ghost in their room or the big bear that lives under their bed that they imagine is to be real. We don't just poo poo them and say that's not real. We understand that those are real fears, and how can I make you feel safe against the bear, right? We allow the empathy to show through, and we keep it real in terms of the empathy, but we don't poo poo the kid, because kids at that age have a highly imaginative brain that is disconnected from reality. So we have to dance that line. Um, for example, if we are going through something hellish in our life and the kid is 7, honesty would mean tell them that we're going through a hellish experience. But that doesn't serve the developmental level of the kid. The kid at 7 can't handle too much of what we're going through. So we don't need to tell them. They are not our friends till way later in life. So they don't need to know things for the sake of honesty. We need to always make sure we are titrating their experience based on their level of security and what do they need. They don't need to know honest details about our lives just because we want to be honest. We can be honest with our girlfriends, we can be honest with our own parents, but we shouldn't mistake being honest, because that often burdens our children and it doesn't set them free.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And what's your day like? What is your routine? That has, what's, we in Ayurveda, we talk about dinacharya, and we talk about quite perfunctory things like oil pulling and tongue scraping and meditation and so on. And I'm sure you have some of these practices, but what is the typical Dr. Shefali day like that has given you this? I can see that you live and breathe your book. That it's such a powerful energy. So what is it that gives you that?
Thank you. Thank you. I think I've really taken away the bullshit from my life. So my life is very, very, very simple. And it's becoming more and more simple. As in, I only do things that give me joy. I only do things that serve my ultimate purpose, which is to be of service. And I take great care of myself now. I'm not a victim of my life anymore. So my day is kind of the same. I kind of eat the same things. I do try to be healthy. I do try to do exercise. I meditate every day, and I really structure my day pretty much the same, pretty much the same, So I have few client hours, I have writing hours, I have friend hours, I have self-care hours, and I actually don't read the news, watch the news. I don't go much on Netflix. I don't have time for frivolous things too much. And maybe once a month I'll do something frivolous with my friends, and I do owe myself that, and I allow myself that. But on a day-to-day basis, I don't allow toxic elements from culture to infiltrate my life. I live in my little bubble. I do what I love, and I'm a little bit selfish about it. I take care of the people I love. It's all about what I love, and I claim that now with an entitlement. And before, I don't know. I used to get a trip out of being a martyr and a victim, and that doesn't interest me anymore. It's not sexy anymore to me.
Mm, that's amazing. Just amazing. So radical reawakening, radical awakening is really about a step by step of recognizing what got you to that place, and then the steps of how to come out of it to find your authentic self. That's
Yes, yes. I believe this book, A Radical Awakening, offers a metamorphosis for women who want to live their most true self. It tells you why you're here through my example, through different clients I work with, and provides a path for reclaiming what was once ours but was rudely abducted from us. And it empowers women. I think it's a permission to be free. It's a permission to be yourself. Like I just said, I just do things I love. I'm sorry, and I'm unapologetic about it because I've given myself permission. And I'm a loving person, but I love myself first. And I've given myself the permission to put myself first. And this book will give other women that permission and see the true value of that. Because when I put myself first, I actually serve humanity right after that. But when I put myself last, I'm of no use to my daughter, my friends, my parents, or humanity. So I teach people how to see the value of self love very clearly so that they can unabashedly begin to reenact that in their own lives.
Do you think the fact that if they pick up your book, they must be ready on some level? Because it's very easy to sit there and read a book intellectually, but then to partake in the book is a different thing, right?
Yeah, and that's why I've written this book in a conversational way, so that there is no choice but to partake in the process with me. But you're right; it's one thing to be passive, and it's another thing to want it. But you know what? I tell people it's okay. Start where you are. Start with passivity. Start with just being an audience member, and soon you will, maybe you read it again. Maybe because of the book, you'll make one small change. Change doesn't have to be monumental. It can be one thing that sets you off. We're not here to become perfect. We're here to simply evolve. And evolution is step by step by step by step, you know.
How long did your evolution's taken your life, I guess, but how long did this major turnaround, this transformation that you speak of in the book? I think
This one took, I think, 2 to 2.5 years from start to quote unquote end. There's no end, but from the beginning of this latest unraveling to the next one, where I was enmeshed in a relationship. I was enmeshed in my identity as the pleaser, as the connector, as the the glue, and how I let go of that to now feeling very untethered and free of those roles. This last evolution took 2.5 years, but there'll be more. There'll be other evolutions, but I think this was a big one, and I think many women in their midlife, I started it at 44, now I'm 48, so I ended it around 2 years ago when I began writing this book. Many women in their midlife, when their children grow up and don't need them anymore, that's a big turning point, I find, for many women, because much of our identity was as mother. And then when our children discard us, kind of, when they become teenagers, we go through the potential for an epiphanic earthquake within ourselves. And I went through one, and everything changed for me. The way I looked at my life, the way I looked at being a wife. I was in a relationship for 25 years. All of it changed. Yeah. And I had to let that go. And it was extremely traumatic and also very life enhancing. There is no transformation without pain. You have to die.
was there a lot of guilt in that letting go? 25.
Sure, sure. All the cultural messages that I'm a bad person to do that. I'm a bad woman, and I'm such a shameful person to break up my family. I had to deal with all of those demons inside me, and I'm sure my partner had to deal with it himself too. And it wasn't easy because culture has such stereotypes and stigmas, especially against women who choose a different way to reconfigure their families. And so I had to go through a severe deconstruction process, which is what I help other women go through now in this book, so that we don't stigmatize ourselves and we see it as a liberating process and an empowering process. And now I empower women and I help women to not buckle under cultural pressure, but instead allow themselves to be liberated from those shackles.
What next for you now?
Oh, I don't know. I try to live in the present. I want to be surprised. I never really want to know what's going to happen. I have no interest in knowing what I'm going to be. All I ask myself and I ask women in my practice is your now in sync? Is your now aligned? Is your now palatable? Is it digestible? Is it transcendent? If we start and end each day with a manifested intention to align the external with the internal, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if that is our intention, then the future will be where it needs to be perfectly. So I know if I just keep moving one foot in front of the other as aligned to my now, is my present choice aligning to who I want to be now? Is my decision aligning with what I want to be in the now? Then the future will have to be lined up, you know? So I don't have vision boards and I don't have anxieties about the future. I just care, is my now, is my right here, right now, where I want to be. So talking to you right now is where I want to be.
I just, honestly, if a little recording of you could come with the book, then we're just sorted. But I guess there are recordings of you. People
Well, I
can.
am doing a 10-day course that goes with this book
Hmm.
toward the end of May. So, and it'll be available for sale forever. It's called a 10-day deep dive into your radical awakening. So people can go to my website and buy the course, and they get 3 books with the course.
Oh, brilliant. So this book and previous books.
No, the same book. You get 3 copies of this book. If you take the course, you can give it to your mother, your sister, your friends. And you go through an intense 10-day journey with me where we do it together with hundreds of other women and men and really experientially go through the process.
As we were sitting here, I was thinking, I want to buy it for every woman I know. Every single woman I know needs it. Actually, I only know one woman who is so in her power. Only one of all the women I know. She blows me away how much in her power she is. It's about what is right for me. And you have that same energy. But why is it so rare? Like, why should it be like that?
Yeah, that's why we need this book, because we've been conditioned that we are supposed to be in the service of others at the obliteration of ourselves. It's I serve people all day, but I don't obliterate myself anymore.
And when is the book out? Is it
The book
out?
is releasing May 18th in 2 weeks from this recording, but I don't know when you're going to air it. And then the course is toward the end of May. So people can go to my website, drshefali.com. If they want a radical awakening or begin the process of radically awakening, they should take this 10-day course, and they get 3 books with the course.
Oh, definitely. Well, I'm taking the course, so I will see you there.
Thank
And
you, Anita, for all you do and for empowering women in your own way.
thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you so much.